As we fly through the closing weeks of Porsche Club of America sim racing this season, Michael Polasek has been on the hottest streak of anybody. 2 wins in the last 2 races, and after missing the first 3 rounds, he might still be in championship contention, depending on how things go today. Welcome back to Mugello, and welcome to round 6 of Series 11 for the Pro Class in PCA Sim Racing. My name is Joey Tebben. Alongside me in the booth once again is Ewan O'Leary, and behind the scenes is our producer, Ramiro Augustine Cisneros. Ewan, it's been a week, but we're back at Mugello again. Last time out it was the Sport class, the Challenge class as well, and now the Top class, most experienced and most fast drivers taking on the Italian countryside for one final time.
Yes, most fast, or fastest, if you want to put it that way. Great track to go racing at as well. I was quite encouraged at the start of the week's rating, at the start of last week, to what we might see here. Unfortunately, the sport race didn't quite have as much overtaking as I was expecting, but the pro class is always very interesting. It's the top level of competition, of course, and so the level here will just be fantastic, and the strategy is going to be the real key. Much like what we saw at Zandvoort, where stopping at the right time was the real key and staying out of traffic, could be the same here.
And in the championship standings, I briefly mentioned it, Michael Polasek, currently 6th in the championship, but he missed the first 3 rounds. His drop weeks are not in consideration anymore, but if he wins this week and gets 25 more points, he could theoretically put himself in championship contention despite missing the first 3 rounds. Chris Pies leads the championship right now after some great consistency in the opening 5 rounds of the season, but his best result is just that one singular win at VIR. Every other race has been a little bit lower than that. Thomas Briggs keeping himself alive, Logan Grado keeping himself alive, and the likes of Mark Nister, Chris Braun, and Drawhorn, Framheim, Gregorato, and Melorano, they're all hoping for something to go very much their way to keep themselves in mathematical contention. You need to be in 25 points of the championship leader to be in consideration for this championship next week. But right as we say that, we hop straight into practice. You get a few laps to get yourself heated up, but the majority of your practice is done before the event. This is sort of a shakedown. Get your rhythms, get your bearings, and then in 3 minutes, we'll be on the clock for qualifying.
Yeah, it's barely even to do that. It's purely to get yourself in the server, get your connection established, get your wheel and pedals in the right position where they need to be, and get on with it. There's not much practice time at all to actually get up to speed here, and that makes qualifying a little bit difficult. If you want an idea as to just how wide open this championship is, by the way, going into today, 22 drivers have a mathematical chance of winning the title. Or maybe it's a couple less than that. It might be about 20. But anyway, you get the point. It is a huge amount of drivers who have a chance. Christopher Paes is very much the one in control, but Michael Polasek really is that sort of spanner in the works. I wasn't expecting to see anybody at the end of 4 rounds having not, or the end of 3 rounds, excuse me, having not taken part in any of the season so far, to just smash through the final 4 rounds and win the title. It's still possible for Michael Polasek, even if we see a good performance today from Christopher Paes. It could still be possible for him to win. So we'll just have to see how it goes tonight. But what a remarkable season it's been for Michael Polasek, and a remarkable turnaround.
We do have to be very careful looking at these lap times right now. These are, I believe, all literally the first counted lap times from every driver on track right now. But even with just that 1 lap, Derek Cyphers, phenomenal showing in practice so far, putting himself up on the top of the timesheets by 0.3 of a second. He definitely needs a good week. He's actually just outside of the top 10. We didn't read his name before. His best result only at the Red Bull Ring was P4, but that's some good speed in practice. If he can recreate that in the race today, even Derek Cyphers could be with an outside chance of this championship.
Exactly. That's just the situation that we're in. It's really remarkable as we go through some of the more extravagant liveries on the field. This is Mark Nister in 6th position, about 9 away from the current fastest time in practice. Look at that livery. We're not going to have any trouble with that one here this evening. He's used the entire colour palette of that you're able to here on iRacing, right to some of the darker ones at the back. Look at that. It will be spotting him from a mile away.
Turning your C, M, Y, and K all the way up. That's what it's all about. I love these bright colors. You got the sort of the zombie pair, the Halloween pair with the bright green and the bright purple with Chris Braun and his teammate as well. Some great liveries in the pro class as we step up the driver's skill level and experience level a little bit. Evidently, we up the livery level as well. Some great stuff out here.
Yeah, and it really is going to be an upping of the level here today. We saw it at Zandvoort. It is noticeable the way that these guys drive at the top class, and that's not to throw any shade at any of the other classes around the Porsche Club of America sim racing sort of scene, but it's just to say that, you know, these pro drivers are absolutely fantastic at what they do, and it's a real show of strength from them. We're going to see them running sort of nose to tail early on, I reckon. It's going to be single file early, but then you start to get into a strategy, and that's what's going to be really key over the course of 40 minutes. How do you work through the strategy? How do you get yourself out of the train and into a bit of clean air?
Qualifying underway. It is closed qualifying. You're not going to see every driver on track at the same time. 3 laps only to nail every corner of Mugello. Get down every last thousandth you can. It's pretty good temperatures out there. 20 degrees Celsius, 23 degrees Celsius is the track temp. That's about 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Google on my other monitor tells me, so that's pretty good qualifying conditions. No wind whatsoever, 1 kilometer per hour. That's nothing. These are prime conditions at Mugello. You're going to have some happy drivers out there.
Yeah, and it's a real joy to drive this circuit. Wonderfully flowing, carved into the hillside here in the mid part of Italy, and it's a spectacular place to come and go racing. It really is. Not necessarily in terms of wheel-to-wheel action, that can be tricky sometimes, but in terms of a spectacle and a great circuit to just go driving on, this is one of those. Although maybe if you were choosing a car for yourself to just test drive around here in iRacing, you'd maybe choose one with a bit more downforce. You'd really want to sort of dial in a good front end for this circuit in a GT3 car, because if you do have a bit of a heavy front end, you find these corners getting very, very long, and sort of you're just willing them to end, especially through the section from about turn 6 to turn 9, through Casanova, Savelli, and then the 2 Arrabbiatas. They can feel like they're going on forever if you're understeering a bit too much.
Chris Pies and Thomas Briggs, 2 championship protagonists on track right now. I am looking over at my timing screen, Ewan, and there is a name I don't see. I don't know if Michael Polasek is actually going to be here tonight. He was with us for the previous 2 rounds, won both of them. There's still 8 minutes in qualifying to hop into the session, but I do not see Michael Polasek in this session just yet. That could blow the championship even more wide open.
Yeah, and that's a real shame. We were sort of looking forward to that sort of really great story of someone coming through from absolutely nowhere in this championship and trying to win. But I think the great thing about this series is that it is so unpredictable. You mentioned it earlier, Chris Pies has only won 1 race this season. Thomas Briggs only won once. Logan Grado's 3rd in the championship. He hasn't won at all. He's only been on the podium once. It's been a remarkably topsy-turvy season, and that's exactly how we've got the situation that we have, with so many drivers actually involved in this championship fight. And it's really wonderful to watch, and today's race win is going to be very important, especially if you're in that sort of top 5 region.
If you are just joining us for the first time, every driver in this field is a member of the real-life Porsche Club of America. You need to be a member to join the sim racing series, so it gives us the chance to see where all of these drivers are from around the country, all of the different Porsche Club of America regions. Logan Grado on your screen right now, representing the Golden Gate region. You can probably guess where that is. Some of the regions are a little bit more obfuscatory. You don't really know where they are, but Golden Gate region, San Francisco, and the surrounding area. And I think you and we can play a game of name that population of a PCA. How many people do you think are in the Golden Gate region of the Porsche Club of America?
It's going to be quite a few, isn't it? Down at,
the whole of the San
California.
Francisco and San Mateo, Santa Clara counties.
Yeah. Isn't that odd? I think that's Arjuna's neck of the woods, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's a member.
He might be. You never know.
Yeah, I know.
Doesn't he have a brown, like, Porsche Cayenne?
I don't think it's brown.
I thought it was.
But I don't know. Ask him because I don't know, to be honest. It's the first time he's come in. Christopher Cook looks like he's got. Oh no, Jesse Lyon with the first time. That seems to be the fastest. I bet that the Golden Gate region is one of the largest. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
3,800 members was the answer. but as times are starting to come in now, Bryce Rodriguez has put it up to pole. These are all the first timed laps for everybody, and you're going to start to see these times come down over the next couple of laps. Nick Melorano trying to hang on to the last spot in the top 10 in the championship. 21st for him. Not ideal. He's going to look to improve on the 2 following laps that he has. But Bryce Rodriguez, fantastic lap from him. Logan Grado, it looked like it was going to be a fantastic lap, but you'll notice no time next to him right now, just because that first lap didn't count. He's been one of the first drivers to come afoul of those many, many places where you can pick up an off-track penalty and disallow your lap at Mugello.
And you really need to get a lap that counts here, because setting yourself back in the field and putting yourself in a real bad spot in terms of the midfield will really set you back in this race, possibly more than some of the others that we've seen this season, the likes of the Red Bull Ring and Road America. Those are circuits where you can overtake, but here and Zandvoort 1 or 2 weeks ago will not allow you to move through the order in quite the same way. Now, remains to be seen whether Logan Grado has done a better job on this lap here and has got this lap validated, but it really needs to be.
For the final corner, it's a sprint to the line, throttle to the floor, and just wait for that lap time to come. Needs to break a 1:46.498 to take pole. It's tracking fairly well. It's not tracking well enough for pole, or even if I'm doing my head math correctly for the top 10. No, unlucky 13th, 14th now for Logan Grado, as Derek Cyphers puts it across the line and takes P2. Excellent qualifying from speed, or excellent practice speed from Derek Cyphers. Definitely converting into qualifying speed so far. I think he'll get one more lap to try and knock Bryce Rodriguez off that top spot. Nicky Chan in the 000 coming across the line. Let's see what Nicky can do. 145, 146, 147. Not a 147, indeed a 146.7. Excellent lap to put Nicky Chan P4.
Yeah, that is a good lap. Just a quarter of a second from pole. Bryce Rodriguez still hanging on to that for now, and that's a good place to be with just over a tenth. It is not the shortest circuit in the world by any means, so these small margins are encouraging. And look at this, Christopher Pies with a big margin up to the top. 3/4 of a second is quite a gap to cross now for the championship leader, and he'll be beginning to look around. Who else has done well in this session? Who's beaten me in this one? Because it's a dangerous place to be at the moment in the midfield, where he's currently looking like he'll start.
Racing with that black and gold livery still. He's been comfortable in the championship lead for a few rounds now, but things are getting dangerously close. He's already used up his drop round. His race at Road America didn't go exactly how he wanted. Only picked up 3 points on that day, which translates to an 18th place finish. Needs to finish a little bit higher up today if he wants to keep this championship as him with him as the favorite. If not, he's going to be coming from behind. He's going to bring it to the line here. Is Chris Pies going to improve on that slightly mediocre lap time by his standards? Looks like the answer is no. He's going to stay P15, and Derek Cyphers puts it on pole with his final lap.
That is a big improvement from Derek Cyphers, who goes 16 thousandths of a second quicker. By the way, we did see the championship leader Chris Pies go a bit quicker there, but it was so minor that it doesn't really matter as Casey Brooks goes over the line. There's some real late laps coming in here that are very quick indeed. That's now 0.5 of a second between first and second.
And you want to talk about some surprises? Kerry Brooks' best previous result this season, a 13th place all the way back in round 2. The number 77 driver has figured out Mugello here in qualifying, and Kerry Brooks is most likely going to lead the field to green. Still 1 minute 46 left to go. There may still be some times on the board, but more than likely it's going to come down to some of these stragglers who came out a little bit late. Chad Sosnowski is one of those drivers. I believe he'll have one more lap on the clock. He's down in 29th, though, 2.2 seconds off the pace. He needs to do something absolutely massive here to knock Kerry Brooks off a pole.
Would have to be absolutely massive. I mean, who's even around that can knock him off at the moment? Well, no one. This is, in fact, the closest driver to pole. Joe Stifle, the only other one out there on the circuit. That's going to be a 49.1. That's slower than... oh, no, it's quick, just a bit quicker, but no positions gained there. And Chaz Sosnowski is going to end up this session with the final lap time of the day. Do have one non-qualifier. Justin Sang we were following for a little while. Doesn't seem to have actually been able to set a time. Don't know whether they were both invalidated or what went on, but he'll be starting 32nd and last.
Those Mugello off tracks really come back to bite. I can speak from personal experience. There's so much attractive painted asphalt out there that you want to run on, and it just comes back to bite you. Disallows that lap instantly. Those incident points rack up in race conditions as well. Chad Sosnowski's going to cross the line, the final legitimate lap in regulation. I don't think that's an improvement. Oh, yes, it is. My head math was totally wrong. It's an improvement of lap time by nearly a full second. Not quite an improvement of position, though. He'll jump from 29th to 28th. One row further is all Chad Sosnowski can get from that, but improving 9/10 on that lap, I imagine he's going to be pretty happy with his own performance at least. But qualifying has come to an end with that lap, and Kerry Brooks, representing Upper Canada, will lead the field to green alongside the fastest driver in practice, just barely off pole. Derek Cyphers rounds out the front row. Bryce Rodriguez P3 and Jesse Lyon P4. Nikki Chan, another driver from the Upper Canada region, doing well, and Chris Cook rounding out the top 6. P7 went to Matthew Siddall. He was very fast at Zandvoort a couple of weeks ago. He starts alongside Stephen Kemp. Thomas Briggs and Leif Peterson round out the top 10. Thomas Briggs looking to keep himself in championship contention and maybe even put himself in the lead of the championship after today. 11th and 12th went to Robbie Prescott and Mark Nister. 13th and 14th, Trey Drawhorn and Logan Grado. Chris Pies, championship leader at the moment. 15th place, much lower than he would have liked. He's going to be fighting to keep that championship lead today as he starts alongside Michael Patterson, Nick Facciolo, and Chad Henson representing Connecticut on row number 9. Chris Braun and James Huth round out the top 20 ahead of Enrico Gregorato and Richard Woodruff. Peter Sigourney and Joe Sinclair from the Northeast and Upper Canada bring us down to 24th. But the hits keep on coming. It's a very big grid as always. Rob Rodriguez Jr. and Nick Melorano, Rich Minkler and Chad Sosnowski, and Lyle Eady and Dale Green bring us down to 30th. Last driver to set a qualifying lap time was Joe Stiefel, and Justin Sang attempted to set a couple lap times. None of them counted though, so he'll start shotgun on the field, 32nd and last. And that is a lot of cars preparing to fire into turn 1 at Mugello, Ewan. And it's going to be a short pace lap. Not much time to warm up those tires. You better get ready for a heavy braking zone almost instantly.
Yeah, and that's the big danger in this field. And that's why I was so concerned about Chris Pies being so far down. 15th in the end in qualifying. How does he get through turn 1? It's just going to be purely about surviving and navigation for him early on, and then working your way through the field. And even that's going to be tricky when you're trying to work your way through on a move at this circuit. But then again, his rivals aren't exactly that far ahead. Thomas Briggs qualified in 9th position for that one. Logan Grado very much around him at the moment in the field, just 1 position ahead. So it's not exactly like his rivals are challenging for the win, although Pies would only have 3 points over Briggs if this were to start how it's if this was to finish how it's starting this race today.
40 minutes on the clock. The beautiful Italian weather still shining brightly. Track temp has gone up a little bit, up to 24 degrees Celsius. That is only 1 degree of change, but in Fahrenheit, that's about 3 degrees of change with the sun very, very brightly out. No clouds in the sky, Ewan. The track might just get hotter all day long, and that means so much worse things for these tires.
Sorry, I was just laughing there at your Fahrenheit comparison.
I tried my best.
Just make me laugh. But anyway, my Fahrenheit comparisons are getting a lot better, by the way, since doing this series. So
I got an F in chemistry. I can't do it.
Oh no. Anyway, we'll sidestep that. Yeah, it's good conditions. It's early in the year, and it's perfect, really. Nice to be out on the circuit just as a spectator in these types of temperatures, but even better to be in a race car because it's ideal. It's not too hot where you're burning through the tyres. It's certainly not too cold where you're struggling to warm them up. I mean, these guys aren't even having to weave around to warm up. They have the confidence in their tyres in towards turn 1 already.
Kerry Brooks in the purple and green number 77 will lead the field to green at Mugello. The iRacing Porsche pace car will pull off, take a hard right, and leave the field in control of Kerry Brooks. It's a slightly underdog story to kick things off. We didn't expect Kerry Brooks to put it on pole. Derek Cypher's very fast in practice. Bryce Rodriguez very fast in qualifying. And now Kerry prepares to hold them all back. It's the penultimate round of the championship. We're going to set the championship field, and we're ready for 40 minutes of racing as we're green at Mugello. It's a nice start from Brooks, but there's a little bit of bump drafting on the right side as Jesse Lyon and Derek Cyphers are locked in line together. Jesse Lyon in that red and blue satellite racing entry peeks to the inside of Brooks. They're 3 wide into turn 1 as Derek Cyphers makes it work around the outside.
How did they survive that? 3 wide and so close to contact on the way towards turn 1. Derek Cyphers able to just use a bit of the outside and a bit of just isolation there. The fact that he wasn't 3 wide and nearly bumping into 2 people at once gave him the lead there ahead of Kerry Brooks, and it's still going on here into 4 and 5 side by side in the field. Bryce Rodriguez hangs on ahead of Nicky Chan, and further back it's all going on. Chad Henson seems to have had problems early on, and luckily for the championship protagonists, Chris Pye seems to have got through the opening lap with 2 places, or the opening sector anyway, with 2 places gained. Logan Grado's still in it as well in 14th.
And that smoke makes the Connecticut viewers cry as Logan Henson went around. Stephen Kemp got into some trouble as well in the number 37, tipped around in the second chicane and backs it into the wall. Damage to the rear end of that very, very shiny Porsche. But up front, Derek Cyphers, that was aggressive, and that was the driver confident in the heat of those tires, confident on the brakes into turn 1. And that was absolutely massive. A second lead already as the 11 and the 4, Chris Cook and Thomas Briggs, side by side into a very high-speed chicane. That is very difficult to do, and Briggs hangs on.
That's Biondetti, where you really want to be single file. It's flat out, whether you are or not, but nevertheless, you want to be taking the right line through there. That's, speaking of the right line, that wasn't it from Christopher Cook, and so Robbie Prescott goes through into 8th place. But I was speaking about a good start for Chris Pies to get up into 13th from 15th on the grid for him. He's still there, but Thomas Briggs has also made up a couple of places here, so that's the important gap to note and the important 2 drivers as far as this championship goes.
I'm going to have my championship points on my second monitor. We're going to do some calculations to make sure we can set you the championship field for next week and the week after. But for now, racing conditions. Jesse Lyon and Kerry Brooks going at it for P2. Maybe a little bit tentative on the start from Brooks Ewan. Slightly unexpected qualifying result. Maybe the slightest bit of discomfort starting up at the front. Maybe that's what made the difference with Cyphers being able to sweep around the outside.
I think so, but as I said at the start, the fact that Cyphers wasn't actually near anybody, I think really helped. He was just able to focus on his own braking zone, his own line on the way into there, whereas everyone was worrying about everybody else into the inside. What has gone on here? Oh dear, little Eddie is into the wall, and that wasn't smart. Czesosnowski also dropping down, by the way, as a result of problems. So there's been a bit going on there, because I saw bodywork all over the place at 2 and 3 there.
Yeah, and the 222 of Peter Sigourney on the outside there already looked very heavily damaged before that was going on. A little bit of craziness in the back of the field. There are actually cautions enabled in this series. If there's a big enough crash, there can be a yellow flag thrown by the admins, but we've been very lucky. That hasn't happened in the last couple of races. Zandvoort, after the first race, was very clean. Mugello's been very clean so far. We've made sure to keep green flag racing going for 40 full minutes in all of these series. The draft's going to come into effect now, though. Slightly diminished draft in these GT3 style cars, but it's still very effective. It's a very long front straight here into a heavy braking zone, and Thomas Briggs is looking to use that on Matthew Siddall, sends it to the inside, but can't make it happen, not late enough on the brakes.
Now this may start to become the problem. We were speaking about this at Zandvoort a couple of weeks ago. You don't want the driver in front of you to get comfortable. We say it time and time again. You've got to use that element of surprise. And once you're there for a while, surprise disappears, as it does in all walks of life. And Thomas Briggs will feel the same very shortly with Matthew Siddall, unless he gets a move on here, as Derek Cyphers is going to lose the lead.
Oh my goodness, was that a slowdown from Derek Cyphers?
Yeah,
the second we look away, has to check up, lets Brooks through, lets Lyon through, and that very much looked like a slowdown, Ewan.
It did. Don't really know where it would have been, but these curbs are so climbable in the GT cars and these sort of road style cars that even at 4 and 5 you might be able to pick one up. And here goes Bryce Rodriguez down the inside. This is on now, down into turn 10 and 11. Rodriguez on the outside for 11 will give him the inside for the hairpin at 12. He's going to chase him to the left-hand side of the road as well. Slightly intimidated. Derek Cyphers gets on the brakes a little bit early, and the 24 car is onto a provisional podium place.
And if you get your chance to pounce, you're going to take it. That's exactly what Bryce Rodriguez did there. Don't know when you're going to get another chance to try and get by Derek Cyphers. And now, as soon as Cyphers looked like he was going to be able to run away with this race, he's got the ultimate comeback on his hands. 3 cars to pass, and the pole sitter, Brooks, takes the lead back. But Jesse Lyon within draft range, very close, probably not close enough to go for a dive into turn 1, but suddenly this race got much, much closer, and I have a feeling we're going to see quite a bit more action now for the final 35 minutes.
I get the feeling we're seeing such a dynamic start to this race. At Zandvoort, for example, the leaders got away well. We got to single file early and we had to wait for the pit stops for the action to happen. But already in these first 5 minutes, we're seeing plenty going on. Kerry Brooks back in the lead, but not looking comfortable necessarily in the lead. This race is very much on, and there's a lot of people who can win this.
And a lot of the drivers in the lead of this race, graduates from the club class last season. Robbie Prescott, Chris Cook, Kerry Brooks, Peter Sigourney, Lyle Edey, to name quite a few. They were drivers in the second tier series in the club class last season, but with their success, they were promoted up one into the pro series, and they're doing a fantastic job. Chris Pies, Jesse Lyon, those guys, Chris Braun, they were in the pro series last season. Interesting to see the blend here. Drivers coming up the ladder, drivers staying at the top of the ladder. They're blending quite evenly today.
They are, and it's wonderful to see. As I mentioned earlier, I think the qualifying times were a good cover of that, because this is not a short racetrack, and it's one of those tracks where you can gain and lose a lot of time. So it's worth noting that those times were so close. That is a good sign, keeps things close, but normally that just means single file racing and close racing, but not at the moment, not so far. I've seen plenty of side by side. By the way, a bit more region what for you, Yellowstone region. I know where that is, but not where, if you see what I mean. I know what that's a reference to, but I don't know where in America that is. So there you go. That's another region for you.
You've read my mind, because I literally had that tab open on the left side of my screen. Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. An assortment of counties around the Yellowstone National Park. And they're representing. It's a part of the country we don't often have represented in sim racing, or in any racing for that matter. Drivers from Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho, but that's the power of sim racing. Even if you're in the middle of nowhere, as long as you got Wi-Fi, you can participate.
Exactly.
You don't even need Wi-Fi for that matter. You could be on a mobile hotspot for all I know.
Yeah, well, exactly. You ever heard the story of Josh Rogers doing that about 8 years ago? In a V8 Supercar race, back when he was not rising through the ranks. He was quite an established name, but very much contained to the Australian market, if you like, and once raced on a hotspot because his internet went out at his home. As we look at a replay here of Joe Sinclair on the second and third corner. Oh dear, that curve's not nice, is it? Said you can climb those curves. Well, not quite like that. He ended up in the gravel on that occasion.
Italian sausages strike again, unfortunately. You may find some delicious sausages in Tuscany with some nice fennel and garlic and basil, but I don't know. What are those average sausage curves made of? Is very hard plastic, concrete?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe concrete. I don't know, but they should get rid of them anyway.
They should be made of nothing.
Well, exactly. There's not even any need there, is there? There's gravel on the inside.
Exactly.
That's what you need. So anyway, we'll have that discussion on another day. But Mugello does a good job of that in general. It's one of those circuits that does punish your errors. It does enforce track limits on its own for the most part, and that can only be a good thing, and hopefully it remains that way as Thomas Briggs once again gets close to Matthew Siddle. Mentioned earlier on that he needed to get it done quickly. Well, he hasn't done, and look at those time gaps and gains and losses. They're very minimal, and that's because he's stuck again into turn 1.
Vidal's been very, very aggressive, but definitely needs another inch or two to actually make that move happen. But this is far more competitive than we've seen in some of the previous races, in some of the lower series. And I do wonder if that has something to do with the open setup of these top 2 series. In the Pro Series and in the second tier series, you can build your own setup. You can choose whether you want to reward yourself in a straight line in that long front straight, or if you want a little bit more downforce for all these high-speed corners. And I think with that diversity, we're seeing some drivers able to take advantage of that long front straight and actually make overtakes possible in a way that they weren't in the draft trains of some of the fixed series.
Yeah, maybe that's playing a role, but I can't help but feel like, just from an outsider's point of view, I've not driven this circuit in this car, but I get the feeling that most of these drivers are going for high downforce setups today, because that seems to make sense with the amount of corners, high-speed corners as well, that are really key in these GT3 cars. So I don't think it's about the level of downforce that they've got on, but just the internals more, trying to make it drive nicer for you. Whether that's contributing to the racing or not remains to be seen, and I don't really know whether that is the answer or not, but it does seem to be a lively opening to this race, and that is a great thing. Jesse Lyon, for example, under a bit of pressure from Bryce Rodriguez there. Matthew Siddle has been holding off a number of drivers for quite some time now. An update, by the way, on the others. Chris Pies has been overtaken on Logan Grado, so he's lost a place and another point.
Not ideal. Very much not ideal for him. Another peek to the inside by Thomas Briggs. Once again, showing Matthew Siddall that he's there, making sure he knows that that he's still seen in those mirrors, but not quite close enough to go for a legitimate overtake, and Siddall keeps it moving. But we're past 10 minutes in this race now. About 28 minutes to go, and the first pit stops have already kicked off. Some drivers thinking about getting out of their lines, getting out of being held up in traffic. Enrico Gregorato, James Huth, and Chad Sosnowski, they're deciding to kick off the pit cycle fairly early, earlier than we normally see, but it's a wide open pit window in this series.
It is. That's a great thing, by the way, but it does mean that the field can be quite spread apart for some time, in terms of we don't quite know where everybody is until about 10 minutes to go, maybe 12 minutes to go. So we'll wait for that moment. However, it's good to see some early stops. I think that's only a luxury, though, afforded to those down at the back of the field. Can't see Thomas Briggs, for example, doing this, ducking in early, because all he'll do is end up in further traffic and slower traffic than he's in right now.
Your eyes do not deceive you. There is indeed a second satellite racing car in this race. Robbie Prescott, a little bit further back in that number 1, and he's sporting the number 1 as the defending champion of the series last season. So trying to keep that alive. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was actually the defending champion of the club class, second tier series. Got promoted up to the pro class, but still gets the number 1. Jesse Lyon, the defending champion of the pro class, I think he decided to stick with the number 115, which you can do as well.
I suppose it's within the rules, but if I was a series winner, I would be sticking the number 1 on at the first opportunity, to be honest with you.
There you go.
So there you go. Fair play to him for not. But yeah, great success for satellite racing in that respect then, because you may note the similar livery. In fact, the pretty much identical livery between the two of them. To have a couple of them in the top 10 is a great thing, but neither of them with particularly eye-opening seasons just yet. Jesse Lyon 14th in the points, no podiums. Robbie Prescott 18th in the points, no podiums either. Best result for either of them, a 6th position, which is lower than Jesse Lyon is at the moment. Could be a season record-breaking day for him.
Another look back at the Matthew Siddall train. It's actually stratified a little bit. Thomas Briggs not really able to stick with him through the middle sector, but getting very wide through the middle of Arrabbiata was Siddall there, almost clipping the gravel. There's still mistakes in this series. There's still mistakes in this class. This may be the highest level of driver, but it's Mugello. It is tough. It wears you out. It wears the tires out. And it was only a small bobble for Matthew Siddall this time, but still 26 minutes left to go. Plenty more opportunities for those tires to start to fall off, for driver error to come into effect. So we ride on board with Bryce Rodriguez now. The top 3 separated by only 0.6. One single error, one single bobble in this group means that somebody else has taken the lead. It's a knife's edge up top.
It really is. And you've got to dance that line expertly. And look at everybody's sort of nervousness there as they come out the final corner. Just saw a couple of slight movements to the right as if to say, I'm coming in maybe, no I'm not, okay, we'll stay out for another lap, and you would imagine they will for another 10 minutes or so maybe. Here goes Bryce Rodriguez looking to the inside. It's a long braking zone downhill here, and he just about pulls it up in time to avoid the back of Jesse Lyon.
Critically, still keeping in control, or still keeping within the range of Kerry Brooks to keep this battle alive. That's exactly what you want when you're trying to battle like that. You don't want to run side by side. You don't want to slow each other down and drop out of contention. If you're not able to make the move, you're going to want to be able to slot back in line and try and go for another shot. But even as they continue to battle in this top three, look who's coming back into consideration. Derek Cyphers, the race leader of the first few minutes. He's trying to make this comeback drive happen, and he has slowly but surely been working his way forward. He was the fastest driver on track on that last lap with a 1:47.4. He's only been taking slight bites away, but he's definitely going to make this a four-car battle in a couple of laps' time.
I'm just not sure he's going to be able to still win this race. I feel like his qualifying pace has very much outdone his race pace. Maybe that is being slightly hidden at the moment by the fact that he did have that slowdown penalty. Do we really know his true race pace right now? Maybe the answer to that is no, but still think that we've seen enough from this first 15 minutes that Derek Cyphers is going to find this difficult in terms of winning the race. But you never know when a leading battle kicks off. It allows everybody else to catch up, because when there's a fight, the drivers behind are able to use the right lines and close in as a result. But for now, that's not happening. Derek Cyphers is under pressure of his own anyway from Nicky Chan in the 000.
And nobody deciding to peel down pit lane. Still a little bit too much of a risk. Still potentially some traffic in the rearview mirror, but nothing changing for the moment. Nicky Chan from the rear bumper cam of Derek Cyphers, one by one there. You didn't miss anything with Brooks, Lyon, or Rodriguez either, as they were line astern into turn one. Got fairly close for P1, but Lyon definitely needs to figure out somewhere to get a better run, because so far, Brooks has been excellent through turn 15. The final corner onto that long front straight. That's the most critical corner on the track. Every other corner is fairly important as well, but it's tough to pass everywhere else. And in the one corner where it matters, Brooks has been eternally frustrating for Jesse Lyon.
Yeah, it has been so far. And just a slight miss of the apex there through Arbiata 1 will extend the gap even further, and that's what we're seeing now with this front three. A bit of an extending of the margin between them all. Now, just to update you on the back of the field, by the way, well, not the back of the field, but the midfield particularly, Logan Grado has been into the pit lane. That's a surprise to me. Third in the championship, taking a risk like that. Mark Nister also, fourth in the points, has taken a risk, and they've, tell you what they've done, ended up in the exact train that they were in anyway. So they've all had the same idea to get out of the group, and in so doing, they've created their own.
Got to be careful, and these are drivers who generally are racing on their own. There are not crews of people deciding strategies here. You might have a virtual crew chief who can decide how much to fuel your car, who can maybe tell you a pit delta even, but there are not strategists behind the pit wall for these drivers. They're doing it all themselves, and that makes it that much more open to the possibility of making a mistake, of ending up in traffic, of doing something that is not conducive to a good result. You got the Christmas tree on the side of your screen. We've had some big movers. Robbie Prescott up 3 spots from where he started, and then basically everybody down to the end of the table up a couple of spots, other than some of those drivers who had trouble. And you briefly saw it as well. Justin Sang, that driver who did not get a lap in qualifying, well, he was very fast last season. He's been very fast this season, and it should be no surprise. He's up 17 spots from 32nd.
Anyone else would do well to overtake him in terms of most places made today. But that's a really impressive number to have accrued at a circuit like Mugello, which is pretty difficult to overtake on, as we've seen with this front three now for the last 10 minutes or so. They have been following one another, really, but that's not the case for Sang, and maybe he'll be beginning to wonder what could have been if there was a better qualifying, because, of course, he was the only driver in the field not to set a time.
This time by at the line, it's going to be halfway. So does anybody decide to go a little bit off strategy? Bryce Rodriguez potentially. Has he been getting held up, or has he just been running exactly the same pace as Jesse Lyons? He takes a peek to the inside through Corintaio, but once again, the gap is not there, not totally open to fully stick that car to the inside. And Bryce Rodriguez learns that a nose is not quite enough into turn 15, not even going to go for an attempt. Going to think about the long way around with the switchback to the late apex. We could have a battle into turn 1, but it's very much going to be for second, as Jesse Lyons says, I'm minimizing my losses, I'm coming down pit lane now, and Jesse Lyons, the first biter out of these lead drivers.
Good idea, really, because all that was going to happen into turn 1, I think, was an overtake there for Bryce Rodriguez. That's only going to cost Jesse Lyon time, and so you might as well quick while you're ahead, get into the pit lane, but the problem is going to be where you come out. Mark Nister is leading that group of drivers who have already pitted. Drawhorn, Logan Grado and Chris Brown are all involved there. Can he get ahead of those guys? And if he can, will he find himself in a bit of free air to use his speed?
Remember the pit stop time for Jesse Lyon, 10.3 seconds. It could all come down to who can put that littlest bit of fuel in the car, who can have the shortest pit stop to end up winning this race. Jesse's come out in somewhat clean air, about 1 second behind Dale Green. Depending on how fast he is, he could be in trouble running into the back of Green and Rich Minkler and a few other drivers back there, but I think he might just be okay. There's not much dirty air up front as things have separated a little bit with Lyon leaving this train. It's a 1 second gap back to Rodriguez, and Cyphers, despite me mentioning how quick he was, he's not really been quite as dominantly quick as he once was. He's still faster than Brooks and Rodriguez lap by lap, but there's just been little mistakes every couple of laps that drop him back and lose him all the time he's made up.
Yeah, exactly. We saw that just as we were commenting on it last. There was a pretty big mistake that allowed another gap to open. So, yeah, for that reason, I said it earlier on, I don't think Derek Cyphers is going to be in the conversation for the win here. I think it's going to be between Kerry Brooks, Bryce Rodriguez and Jesse Lyon, although it really matters how quickly he gets past Dale Green, who he's already caught for 19th position. Meanwhile, Leif Peterson and Christopher Pies fight for 9th position in the field. This is not quite representative of where they are in the race because of those who have pitted already, but they are in clean air, so could do the overcut if you like.
Too far back for Pies this time. You see the lap comparison, very, very similar, and that's kind of frustrating when you're in a battle like that. If you're faster in the first two sectors, but just losing out in that final sector, as I mentioned with Brooks and Lyon before, you really need to be fast in that final sector. You need an excellent run out of the final corner. You need to be fast in a straight line to make an overtake around here. And Pies definitely getting frustrated back there. Briggs, though, gets through on Siddall a little bit further back, and Siddall's falling down the order. That smells to me like another slowdown, Derek Cyphers style.
It looks like it because there's no obvious damage. He doesn't seem to have been in the gravel, although he could have been, and that promotes Thomas Briggs up another place. Now it will become 6th place because surely they'll all be overtaken again by Jesse Lyon when everybody else comes in, but this is once again great news for Thomas Briggs, who looks like he's going to gain points today and set up a frankly enthralling finale with Christopher Pies, the championship leader, who may well lose some points today.
If things finish as they are, and I'm putting Jesse Lyon ahead of both of these drivers as an assumption, if Briggs finishes 6th, he gets 15 points. If Pies finishes 11th, he gets 10 points. That is a 5-point difference. The current championship difference is 9 points. That means that going into the Daytona road course, Pies would still have the slightest of championship leads by only 4 points. And the difference between first and second, what is that? But 4 points. We could be going into a tiebreaker scenario. It is going to get very, very exciting at Daytona next week. But it's getting very exciting at Mugello for that matter, as Rodriguez has decimated the gap up to Brooks for P1. It was almost a shot into turn 1 there.
Yeah, Bryce Rodriguez is looking really quick now on low fuel, and this is dangerous for the end of the race. If he's not leading by that point, then watch out in those final moments because he's really speedy at the moment. Now, Jesse Lyon might be enjoying this because the fact that the two of them are fighting with one another is good news, although saying that, Jesse Lyon has still not found his way past Dale Green. The last lap was a 48-1. That was slower than these two leaders here. Kerry Brooks himself today, 47.8. That's not the impressive one. 47.3 from Bryce Rodriguez. That's an insane lap time and a lot quicker than Jesse Lyon's able to do. Now Lyon's only just now been able to find his way past Dale Green.
Down the hill, high speed right, high speed left. Rodriguez all over the back of Brooks. And when does that pit lane call finally come? We saw in the previous classes, you could go all the way to about 10 minutes to go. You can run half an hour on a tank of fuel here. But do you really want to go that far? Do they want to take the risk of ending up a little bit further back? Cook and Siddall were side by side for just a moment. Siddall gets through, and that's one spot gained once again after losing it from a slowdown. Siddall's drive forward continues as well. He's also one of the fastest drivers on track right now.
There he is. Oh, careful in the aqua blue Porsche. Christopher Cook trying to run his way down the inside. Can't do it though. I'm not sure where Siddall's found this pace from, to be honest, but he is a lot quicker right now, and so's Bryce Rodriguez. Look at this for the lead. Whoa. He's looking for the inside. An almost impossible gap into turn one, but Kerry Brooks left a car width, and Bryce Rodriguez was all too happy to fill it.
One singular car width, nothing more, nothing less. That's all Kerry gave him, and Bryce took advantage. Rodriguez becomes the third leader of this race so far, one of the most competitive we've had all season, and now he tries to set his sights forward and run away, extend this gap as much as humanly possible before having to come down pit lane.
Yeah, and this is so ominous for the end of this race, with Jesse Lyon stuck in traffic, Kerry Brooks now in the rearview mirror. Bryce Rodriguez is looking good for a race win here at Mugello, and even if he's not in the lead at the exit of the pit lane, I expect he will be, but even if he's not, he's got that sort of pace on, low fuel to fall back on. Not really sure how he's found so much speed late on here in this first stint, but my goodness, he's almost unbeatable at the moment.
Brooks might even be in danger of losing second here before the pit stop comes around, as Cyphers has absolutely decimated that gap as well. It's almost looking like the way Rodriguez took that down. But this could be a critical championship position. I mentioned the difference between first and second is 4 points. If Pies can get back Peterson, that gives him an extra point. That would mean he had a 5-point championship advantage over Thomas Briggs in the championship finale next week. Every one of those points is going to matter. You want to be in the most comfortable possible position once that championship finale comes around. You don't want to have to do any more work than you really have to once the pressure comes, and it is pit stop time. Brooks and Cyphers bring it down simultaneously. Rodriguez elects to go one more time around. Chan does as well, but now we wait for the blend between these two, and critically, the blend about 30 seconds back with Jesse Lyon coming down.
Yeah, that's going to be the crucial one here. Lyon has had a couple of clean laps now, 47.6 on that last one, which was quicker than Kerry Brooks' previous laps. Obviously quicker than the one that there's just ended because he's come into the pit lane. But Jesse Lyon has recovered some of that damage. Now, whether he's recovered enough, I'm not convinced personally, but he will hope so. 10.3 seconds for Brooks. It's exactly the same as Jesse Lyon's stop.
I hope we can see the blend, as I think Lyon and Cyphers are coming out fairly close to each other. Lyon does get past Cyphers into turn one, but not past Brooks critically. Slots in the middle of the sandwich, and that is very unfortunate for Lyon. Yeah, he's not going to end up in the lead. He's going to end up in second at the absolute best. How's the blend going to be with Bryce Rodriguez this time around? That's going to be the real question. The battle for the top 10 is on for everybody else, but the battle for the lead, if Bryce Rodriguez is going to have a normal stop, a 10-second stop, no penalties, no trouble on pit lane, he should theoretically be able to come out with a fairly sturdy lead here.
And it really makes you wonder where Jesse Lyon would have been had he not been behind Dale Green for a couple of laps. He surely would have been ahead of Kerry Brooks and maybe in the lead past Bryce Rodriguez as well, but a 48.0 from the last lap is slowing down for Bryce Rodriguez. He's maybe not quite as quick as he was previously. Now he'll come into pit lane though. You can just see him not using quite all of the apex there because he needs to give himself some space to turn in here and get slowed up in time. And so now the crucial blend. Not everybody's in. It looks like Robbie Prescott will continue on, but he won't matter for the moment. It's all going to be about Kerry Brooks, Jesse Lyon and Derek Cyphers. How many of those drivers get ahead of Bryce Rodriguez?
For every driver not named Robbie Prescott, this is the hard end of the fuel tank. There are drops in there at this moment. And this is going to be the most important blend you see. The clock ticks up for Rodriguez. 10.11 seconds, actually. That is 1 second lost. This is going to be pretty close on pit lane exit. Where does Rodriguez come out in relation to Brooks? You see the shiny purple and green car of Brooks coming by just then. Now Rodriguez crawls off pit lane. Brooks comes with a full head of steam. It's just going to be enough for Rodriguez to hold on, though. The rhythm needs to set in, though, for Rodriguez. Brooks is on slightly hotter tires. The tires didn't change, but they were stopped for 10 seconds for Rodriguez. And this is the time for Brooks to pounce. If he wants to get back by, he might just have a lap to do it before Rodriguez takes off into the sunset.
Yeah, it's that element of surprise again. He has to do it right now, but I don't think he's going to be able to. Bryce Rodriguez will be in the rhythm again very soon. Rob Rodriguez Jr., meanwhile, making his way out of the pit lane with the likes of Joe Sinclair recovering from that trip into the gravel earlier on. But there is the battle for what will be the lead. Robbie Prescott and Richard Woodruff, for whatever reason, have been able to squeeze an extra lap out of the tank that the others have not.
Absolute magic. And got to give a shout out to Richard Woodruff. We talked about Justin Sang driving his way through the field. Woodruff is going to drop down the order after he makes his pit stop, but I think he's still going to end up in the top 20. And with an off-strategy move with some fuel saving, this could definitely be a drive forward for Woodruff and a somewhat improved result from what he would have gained otherwise without going off strategy. This honestly looks to me like Kerry Brooks is running out of steam, though, Ewan. It looks like those tires are starting to wear a little bit because Rodriguez blew by. It looked like Cyphers was going to be on the attack before the pit stop. And now Jesse Lyon, who currently sits in overall third once they get by Prescott and Woodruff, he's absolutely hounding Brooks as well.
Yeah, you might be right. I was saying that it was Bryce Rodriguez's speed that was the impressive part towards the end of the stint, but maybe it's Kerry Brooks falling away slightly as they go past the stoppers. Robbie Prescott will be near these guys, but Bryce Rodriguez will be the leader. There's no doubt about that one. Then Kerry Brooks. Jesse Lyon is still quick, but it's such a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation if you're third. If you try and overtake and get into second place, then the leader will get away because you're fighting with second place. If you don't try and get through into second place, then you won't win because you're in third and you don't have the chance to overtake first when you're in third. So what does Jesse Lyon do here? It's an impossible task to solve.
And that blend between Thomas Briggs and Robbie Prescott, Briggs has come out just ahead. The championship has suddenly gotten slightly less close. 6th place for Briggs, as I previously mentioned, would give him a certain amount of points that I've already forgotten, 15 points. And if Chris Pies finishes 9th, that'll give him 12 points. That would mean a 6-point difference in the championship coming into Daytona. And that would mean the difference between 1st and 3rd, for example, or the difference between 4th and 11th. Suddenly that means it's that much less likely that Briggs can take it from behind. He definitely needs to find a way to get some kind of extra point or hope that Chris Pies runs into trouble to make it that much more comfortable.
But let's just talk about how that actually transpired, though, for a second here, Joey, because we saw earlier on Chris Pies was in 15th place in qualifying. He did get up to 13th with a couple of overtakes in the first stint, but it was nothing special. It was those coming in ahead of him who have made the mistake here. Mark Nister has already been out there for 11 laps since his stop. So has Logan Grado. They ended up slowing each other down, I think. Nick Facciolo as well was a bit earlier than Pies. So was Chris Braun as well, who joined those guys, Nister and Grado. So effectively, those guys all got together and slowed each other down. Chris Pies was out there on lower fuel, admittedly out there in the higher positions, which he's now lost some of course, but look at the train he's ahead of. He's just a second ahead of a 6-car train, all fighting for 10th position. He's done remarkably well out of this.
I think we may have written off Kerry Brooks a little bit too early as well. Mentioned potentially the fall off. Might even be in the conversation for losing second, but on that last lap, equal pace with Rodriguez. In the first sector, faster than Rodriguez. I think the race for the win might be back on in these final 6 minutes.
It could be. It really could. It's such a race of swings and roundabouts, isn't it? 40 minutes is a relatively long time around a circuit that will chew through your tyres if you're not careful with them. And maybe Bryce Rodriguez has gone a little bit too early, got a little bit excited on that low fuel with the ambition of leading the race here. But Kerry Brooks is not going to let this one go easily, and he's going to begin to apply that pressure as well. Will Rodriguez be able to sustain that pressure and and keep his eyes forward rather than mirror driving, if you like, and slowing himself down.
Cyphers has joined the train as well. It's not going to be a win for him. He's going to be thinking about what might have been back there. If it wasn't for that one slowdown, he might be about 5 seconds in the lead right now, but one mistake is all it takes to take you out of contention. With the competition in this series, with the closeness and parity of these drivers and these cars, that one mistake can really take you out of things. Down the front straight, though, we're going to cross the line with about 5 minutes, 10 seconds to go. If my math is correct, which I think it actually is for once, that is 3 laps to go. If you're going to want to make a move, you're going to need to do it soon. You don't get many of those opportunities to do it around here. You've only got a few more left.
It's now or never, especially for Jesse Lyon. If he wants to win this race, he needs to overtake Kerry Brook very quickly and then get up to Bryce Rodriguez very quickly and overtake him too. The odds for him winning the race diminishing as we speak, but Kerry Brooks is still within this race, and maybe it will be last lap chances for him if he wants to try and go for this. The best overtaking opportunity on this circuit indisputably is turn number 1. Now that does mean that on the last lap we may think we know the name of the race winner very early on, but as soon as battles happen around here, you lose a lot of time very quickly, and all hell can break loose if they go side by side for a sustained period of time.
Good run up over the hill for Rodriguez, extending that gap just that little bit. It's not about running away from the field. It's not about pulling seconds per lap. It's just about pulling tenths and breaking out of draft range and keeping yourself comfortable in a race like this. And suddenly it does look that little bit more unlikely that Brooks gets by. Looks that little bit more unlikely for Jesse Lyon, as there was a bad couple of corners for Jesse. Suddenly Nicky Chan is all over the back of that number 115 of the defending champion. The battle for third could be on. We could get 2 of those purple and green cars on the podium if Nicky Chan can make this happen.
We certainly could, and that came from a mistake. So Jesse Lyon has gone from maybe searching for second, searching for a win, an outside shot at a win. Well, that's certainly gone away now. It's going to be about retaining a podium. Nicky Chan all over the back of Lyon here into turn number 1. This will be the closest fight here in the top 5, no doubt. Chan not close enough though. This may well have to wait for the last lap as well.
Nothing doing into turn 1, but you want to talk about experience, Ewan? I haven't mentioned this about Nicky Chan yet. This guy has been sim racing since before sim racing was sim racing. It started in the 80s and 90s in the computer games and the Grand Prix Legends and even the precursors to that. This guy's riding on experience that may have started before Jesse Lyon was born, and he's trying to use that to take advantage. Nothing doing in the first sector just yet, but Chan's putting on the pressure.
It'd be a bit unfair on him to say that. Make him feel old.
Experience is
anyway.
good.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But there we go. It is going to be in towards turn 1, I think, and this is maybe the most likely battle to change, actually. I think Kerry Brooks is going to fall slightly short as Bryce Rodriguez has just found another gear to grab at the end of a stint here. As the fuel gets low into those final few laps, he was so good in the first stint. It's looking like he's repeating that in the second.
Believe it will be 1 lap to go at the line. It's been a race against the clock, so it could be close. We could get 2, but I don't think it's actually going to be that close. Rodriguez actually starting to run away. Brooks did look a little bit like Kerry Brooks rather looked a little bit like he was going to make it a battle, but I don't think it's going to happen as Rodriguez rounds the final corner for the penultimate time. The driver from the Hudson Valley region is going to take the white flag, and if he can keep it mistake-free, this could very well be the number 24 doing well and dominating the end stage of this race, but he's got 1 more lap to hang on.
Does just 1 more lap around here to seal a win for Bryce Rodriguez down into turn 1 again. It's single file again in this fight for third place. By the way, Bryce Rodriguez 16th in the points going into today. 1 podium came 2 weeks ago at Zandvoort. He started the day at a whopping 40 points off Chris Pies, and even with the win here, Bryce Rodriguez is going to be, as expected, probably out of championship contention. It's not been a bad day all in all for the championship leader.
It's been a part-time season for Bryce Rodriguez, but coming into next season potentially with the run he's had in these final couple of races, he could very well be a championship contender when the next season comes around. It was in the first race a couple of races ago. It was a 5th place finish or a 6th place finish. Second race, it was a 3rd place finish. And I guess it was only a mathematical question that it was going to end up being a win after jumping up the order like that and dividing by 2, dividing by 3 every time. Man, what a race this has been. 3 different leaders and 3 different drivers who look like they might be able to run away with this thing. It all started with Cyphers with that huge move on lap 1 around the outside. Looked like he was going to drive off into the sunset, but a mistake took him out of it. He's going to finish in P5, all things considered. Brooks was ready to pounce. The surprise pole sitter pounced, led a couple of laps, but the late pace for Bryce Rodriguez has been absolutely incredible. It's been the class of the field, and out of the final corner, it's a mistake-free final lap, and the checkered flag is in hand, representing the Hudson Valley region. Bryce Rodriguez wins for the first time this season, and very much keeps himself alive in the conversation for the championship next season. But the championship conversation this season is officially going to come down to Thomas Briggs and Christopher Pies. 6th for Briggs, 9th for Pies. If my math is correct, it's going to be a 6-point difference between those 2 drivers coming into the championship finale at the Daytona Road Course next week. And that is going to be a lot of math to do next week, a lot of calculations for an exciting championship finale.
You are correct. The top 2 would seal it then for Chris Pies next week, but as shown by the previous performances this season, he's only been in the top 2 twice, so that's not a foregone conclusion whatsoever. Great driving though from Bryce Rodriguez to become the 5th different race winner in 6 races.
3 different regions on the podium. Kerry Brooks might not have come away with the win, but still an excellent race. Pole and 2nd. Jesse Lyon, defending champion, rounds off the podium representing the Yellowstone region. Nikki Chan, kind of the underdog of the day in that 000. And Derek Cyphers, a little bit of heartbreak for Derek, but still a top 5 at the end of it all. Briggs, Prescott, Siddall, Pies, and Cook rounded out the top 10. Briggs and Siddall, or Briggs and his championship rival, rather, they are going to be the biggest conversation makers next week. And Christopher Pies, Mark Nister just outside of the top 10 with an off strategy ahead of Leaf Peterson. Logan Grado, also one of those drivers on the precipice of championship contention. He will not be joining Briggs and Pies in championship contention, though, next week. Facciolo and Braun rounded out the top 15. Then Gregorato, Patterson, Rodriguez, Sinclair, and Henson rounded out the top 20. Henson, great drive back from him after a spin on lap 1, drove his way back into the top 20. Melorano, Drawhorn, Minkler, Green, and Sigourney rounded out the drivers on the lead lap. Sigourney coming back from some early damage. Then Kemp, Stiefel, and Woodruff ran into some early trouble. Still managed to finish on the lead lap, though. James Huth was 1 lap down after a penalty. And Justin Sang, a very unfortunate day for him, started all the way at the back, drove up about 17 spots, and then ended 6 laps down after a late incident. Lyle Eady and Chad Sosnowski, early incidents for them, meant 11 laps down and 15 laps down were their end positions. But that was an absolute barn burner, Ewan. Mugello, not known for putting on the most exciting of car races, but we certainly delivered today. 3 different leaders, about 5 drivers who were in contention for the win. That was phenomenal.
It was a good race and a great way to set us up for a great couple of weeks at Daytona. Still 4 races in the 11th season of this series to go. That, of course, meaning in all 4 of the categories. I mean, there's 1 race for each at Daytona starting next week. Really looking forward to that. We've set it up perfectly with a race that has surprised us. Certainly some of the previous ones at Mugello didn't really provide much for us in the way of overtakes or interest in terms of who was going to win, but this had plenty of twists and turns, and we didn't really know who was going to win until the final few laps, those crucial final laps when Bryce Rodriguez put the final nail in everyone else's coffin.
Next week on RaceSpotTV, Wednesday, April 3rd, you'll have the championship decider for the Challenge Series. Thursday, April 4th, championship decider for the Sports Series. Then the week after, April 10th on Wednesday, you'll have the Club Series. And last but not least, Thursday, April 11th, the Pro Championship decider. We hope you'll join us for all of those. But until then, I've been Joey Tebben. Ewan O'Leary's been Ewan O'Leary. Our producer has been Ramiro Augustine Cisneros. Until we see you next time, so long.